Welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of Official Let's Talk podcast. Today, we're joined by Holly Provencals. Holly, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm good. Holly's here today, and she's going to just tell us her story. So, guys, make sure you hit the like button and share and tell a friend, and just share this wherever you can, because that will actually help the channel grow. And make sure you hit the like button because then more people can see this. So, Holly, what is your story?
I mean, we could start from when I was born. I haven't left the state that I'm currently in the United States. You know what? Screw it. I'll just say it. I'm from Rhode Island. It's the smallest state in the United States of America.
Okay.
Uh, I haven't left. I've been born and raised here my whole life. I would love to see the world, but right now that's not much of an option.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy times, Holly. Crazy, crazy, crazy times. A lot of I'll just actually say this here. A family member's actually just fell out with me today because of my views on certain situations that are going on in the world, and it's crazy because people are just so divided at the minute, and you know, but hopefully in the next, this year, hopefully that things do get better. So we're here to talk about a subject. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about your experiences of life. So, what is your story then, Holly? How do you want to start this off?
I guess we'll start. I can't remember this incident, but my parents do.
Hmm.
I was probably about 2 years old. I don't know why I'm starting here, but it was just a
No,
thing.
that's fine. That's right at the beginning. Like,
Um, I was in their room and I was standing on top of the radiator. We have one of those old fashioned, like kind of like coil style radiators.
yeah,
And I was looking out their window, just watching the cars go by. And all of a sudden I slipped, fell, had to get a couple of stitches right up here.
right.
So there's that.
That's right at the beginning. So we're going right back here to the right. Do you remember that time?
Not at all.
Not at all. So can I ask you a question? And I'm sorry just to jump straight into it because
Go ahead.
I when did you first feel that you were a little bit different inside and you felt like maybe you didn't feel like the person that you were supposed to be? Is that the correct way of putting it?
It's a good way of putting it. It's good enough that it gets the point across.
Yeah.
I would say the feelings started out very, very mildly at around the age I started puberty. So around 12, 13 years old.
Okay. And what can you describe those feelings? Can you tell us?
It was mainly just curiosity, more like of just being like, what would it be like to have been born a girl or to grow up and become a woman or whatever. And I was
Hmm.
watching videos at that time of people's transition timelines. So I was watching them go from where they started to where they were at that point.
Hmm.
And it just it blew my mind at the age of 12, 13. I'm like, holy crap, these people look so different and they look a lot happier. They're not upset anymore.
Hmm.
And but yeah, like I said, it was mild. I stopped watching the videos after maybe a few months, but over
Right.
time the feelings just got stronger and stronger until it was like just a constant nagging at the back of my head.
And was that the first moment in your life when you seen those videos did you have them feelings before that you wanted to be something else, that you maybe you were in the wrong body, or was it that specific video that made you go, hold on, this is I want
It
to be like this?
it was more like I had those mild feelings before, and watching the videos gave me an idea of what other people who were dealing with the same thing.
Right. Yeah. So
So
you didn't feel alone then.
yeah, I just didn't. I just
Yeah.
wanted to understand it better.
Yeah, yeah, that's I'm trying to put myself into that sort of mind frame. And obviously it's very hard to, because we're all born differently. I'm born the way I'm born, you're born the way you're born. But you know, there's all other types. It's like people have this concept where they think, people that trans people maybe are born with a disorder. It's not. It's not a disorder. It's not. You know, it, you can be born any way. Everybody's born the way they're born, but there's this. You know, speaking to a lots of people, like trans people, that they're telling me that there's this deep feeling inside that they knew that there had to be something different. So, when was the first time you actually felt that you were a little bit different? You know, the sort of the roundabout age.
I would say the first time I started kind of acting on that, or on that idea or thought process,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, Probably about 14, 15.
Wow.
Now, a lot of the I'm kind of going a backstory. Um, from the ages of 7 to 17, so some of the most developmental years of a kid's life.
Yeah.
um, my parents had been divorced before that. So from 7 to 17, my dad had been in a relationship with another woman. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't cheat on my mom or anything. They divorced before all that happened, so
Mm-hmm.
everything went fine with them. Um, but yeah, he was with this woman, and I she was emotionally manipulative. She was gaslighting. She was a she was red flags. She was just pure red flags. She was
Okay.
narcissistic and just all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I was scheduled to go to my dad's. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and every Sunday or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, that started to change over time. Um, but I would be completely afraid to go to my dad's house on days like that, because I would be pulled into these conversations, not like friendly sit down, how's your day going? Like, I get called by either Christy or I'm fuck it, I said her name, Christy. She doesn't really deserve the privacy.
As long
Um,
as you do, as long as you don't say the second name, I think
I'm
you
not
should be
gonna say
fine.
the second name. I'll just
Yeah.
say the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I'm not saying my dad's name, a lot of people aren't really going to be able to look that up at least as easily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, this woman Christy, I would get pulled into the kitchen or the living room or whatever, and I would be standing there, me against them two, uh,
Mm-hmm.
basically telling me supposedly what I did wrong, when all I do fucking all day is, oh good, we're past 5 minutes. Is just, I was so afraid that all I did was sit in the dining room and work on my laptop. I would be on my laptop, or I'd be on my phone, or I'd be doing whatever. Granted, yeah, I was downstairs watching TV, but it was always a way to hide away from her.
And what age was this?
This went on from 7 to 17, or around 8 to 17.
So there's this period of your life from 7 to 17, say, roughly
Yeah.
say, and not that you're feeling neglected a bit, but maybe could have say that you're feeling a wee bit emotionally neglected.
I don't know if I was emotionally neglected, because I don't
It's like
it was it, it was
yeah,
emotional.
yeah.
I felt like it was emotional abuse.
Right. So that's I didn't want to say that, but that, you know, instantly there, you know, as a 7 year old, this is the time that the crucial times that a daughter or a son needs their father, and they need
Yep.
this strong male figure in their life that's going to sort of guide them down the right path, regardless of who you are inside. You know, they're going to be there for you, but you're actually feeling like maybe the opposite of this, and maybe your father's siding with his girlfriend,
he's
and she,
he's he's siding with his girlfriend, because
yeah,
obviously he doesn't want to make her upset. He doesn't want to lose her. He's
hmm,
blinded by love.
yeah, yeah,
But now I do want to clarify that maybe for the first year or so, my dad was living in an apartment complex, well, in a small apartment.
hmm.
So she wasn't there a lot of the time. So obviously for those first year or two, it was gradually getting to know who she was, gradually getting to know her. And then once they got a house together is when things really started to hit the fan.
So you're maybe around about 10 or something then when that happened.
Mm, between like 9 and 10. Yeah, I would say
Yeah,
so.
between 9 and 10, and that's whenever you felt then. Now, at 7 years of age, you're still, regardless of the way your father's acting or whatever situation you are in your life, you're still feeling this. inside. Is that correct saying? Like maybe prior to 7 years, or do you still feel a wee bit different, or is it just initially when you're 14, it's like, oh, these feelings are
The feelings never came to my mind until around the age of like 11 or 12.
that's like it
Not
is.
every trans person
Yeah,
feels different at birth, from birth.
yeah,
Sometimes
that's
people
yeah.
won't realize it until you got people in their 60s or their 50s transitioning, because they
Wow.
never came out earlier, or they either were afraid, or they never really thought about those feelings, or they just maybe never popped up until later in life.
That is quite. It's like a spectrum then of time. Should you
Yep.
say it's like anything could happen? It's just it's these feelings come in and you can't help it, and it's just who you are, and you have to just express yourself the way you feel. You have to express yourself. So there's this situation in your household, well, with your dad's household anyway, and you know it's obviously that's quite an emotional thing for a 7-year-old, right up until 17 to go through. And did that progressively get worse? If you mind me asking, you don't have to answer these questions, by the way, Holly. But did
I'll
that
answer them.
progress?
I don't care.
Did that progressively get worse then, as the
Um,
time as the
it
time went on?
started
Or
relatively easy. Like I said, between 7 and 8, before they really got the house together, before they
mm-hmm,
bought the house together.
mm-hmm,
But once they did, then things got worse. I had been scheduled, I guess, whatever the word is, by the judge or whatever, by the divorce attorney or judge, whatever, whoever it was, that I would be spending certain days with my dad, or I'd be spending certain days with my mom, whatever.
mm-hmm,
Um, so I would sleep over at my dad's. I want to say it was either Tuesdays and Wednesdays and a Thursday.
mm-hmm.
So I would sleep over for those 2 nights, and then Sunday I would be spending the afternoon with him from around 3 o'clock when he got out of work. Um, but it was once they moved in that I started getting really anxious, because there's one event that does stick out in my mind, and it was
Mm-hmm.
another one of these conversations that we had for seemingly no fucking reason. Um,
Mm-hmm.
After they split up, my dad even said to me, he says they had split up for like couples, individual counseling, and then they were going to do a group session together.
Mm-hmm.
Once they finally split up, I got a phone call from my dad. I basically didn't talk for 20 minutes. He was on the phone the entire time apologizing for everything that I had been through.
Oh, so there was realization then.
Mm-hmm. After the
And
fact,
yeah.
but yes, there was realization.
Well, that's good. That's always a good thing, because no matter what anybody goes through, we do get blindsided by a lot of things. But I think at the end of the day, when there is realization, you have to learn from it. And so, at what age was there? 17. There was this realization then. Oh, you're
17 or 18, yes, I had started
yeah.
college around then.
Hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah,
that's
that's when
good.
he
That's
realized
good.
it.
And so now, just to step away from that, because I do think that's an important role, and maybe we'll come back to that in a minute. But I'm thinking to myself, so it's 14. You're 14. You're 12 to 14, and you're seeing these videos, and you're not feeling alone anymore. Now, I'm just gonna ask the question: for a trans person to be born into the wrong body, do you feel that the body parts that you have shouldn't be there, and you need them gone?
Now, I do not fall under that I guess fall in that part of the spectrum, that extreme body dysphoria or gender
Mm-hmm.
dysphoria.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am perfectly okay with the parts that I have. I don't feel the need to get any kind of gender surgery or anything like that. But I do know there are trans people who, with severe gender dysphoria, severe body dysphoria, or whatever, they cannot stand it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm on the less severe side of that.
But is that body dysphoria, Holly, or is that maybe wanting to go the full way to for them to themselves to feel that they're fully a what they want to be? Like I could say now, like, you're my friend. You want me to call you a lady? I'll call you. That's what you are. Listen, just to say this, guys. Like, me and Holly done a podcast about Scientology, which is coming out soon. Halfway through the podcast, she tells me, "Oh, by the way, I'm trans," and I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a baldy notion, and my jaw dropped, and I was like, "What?" I like because without sounding bad, you look American. Like, I've seen lots of American women look like you, and they're just American women. So, I mean, I didn't edit that part out. I actually didn't edit most of that podcast because it was quite funny too, the stuff that happened. But that's the truth, Holly, and I was totally taken aback. But you know, so you're actually happy to have, should you say, male genitals, but at the same time just identify as a woman.
Yeah, I'm okay with the parts that I was given at birth. The hormones, obviously, the hormone treatment is going to affect them,
Yeah, yeah,
so it's not as, I guess, prominent in my daily life. The I don't know how to say this. All right, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go into some of the graphic shit.
yeah. You
Um,
can. Yeah, of course.
so when you're on hormone blockers, in my case, testosterone blockers, and then when you're compensating that with estradiol, um, it's obviously going to bring down your libido severely. I
Right,
used to masturbate like every fucking day. Um, Nowadays, it's I barely do it, if at all.
right.
So it's completely brought down
Th-
the sexual interest.
And do you, is that like, there's a lot of questions came into my mind there. Just to be honest, I'm just thinking to myself, like, what question is that sort
Whatever
of
questions you have, go right ahead.
does that make you sort of asexual then, or do you
No,
still,
I asexual. Trying to think of how to describe it. It's not that
you just
I'm
couldn't
trying to
be
think of how to
bothered?
word this now
You
without
just couldn't be
coming
bothered. You
across the
just,
wrong
yeah,
way.
I get that. You just couldn't be
Asexual
bothered.
is somebody who doesn't have sexual interests, sexual feelings, sexual tendencies towards people.
Hmm.
I do have those, but the libido just causes the interest to kind of be pushed down a little bit. It doesn't completely wipe it out. It's still
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it just lowers the interest.
And what is, if you mind me asking, what is the medication that you take for that?
I am on spironolactone, which is the T blocker, and estradiol, which is the estrogen supplement.
I'm just thinking now, if I was a woman and I wanted to become a male, say, I could get all the testosterone, all the testosterone you needed, and just just become just become the Hulk. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's crazy. That's crazy. Now that brings, listen to all the little subcategories that we're talking about here. So for instance, if you wanted to say do a sport, if you wanted to go into a sport, what sort of category would you go into? Would you go for the female or would you go for the male? What one do you think would suit you?
Based on my lack of playing sports, very, very little muscle mass.
Well,
Um,
listen, it's not just about that. It's like there's snooker players, there's pool players. It's not all about muscle mass. There's all different types of things, like. But I mean, how do you feel about the whole situation in regards to today's climate? Like, there's a lot of kickoff about, men. Like, I could just say that I'm a woman and I could just go in and fight MMA, or I could go on track and field, and a lot of companies have to take that because they're in the mainstream media's eyes. Do you agree with that, or are
I
you on?
am not. I don't tend to follow trans people in sports. I do.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the process that it takes for a person to be considered to be able to participate in the opposite gender identities
Yeah.
sport.
Yeah.
Um, I do know that hormones after some time can cause bone density to fluctuate, muscle mass to fluctuate, and
Hmm.
that can help someone to, I guess, be categorized easier.
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
I don't know how easy it would be to actually just say I'm a woman and then just jump right into fucking female MMA.
I'm not joking you, right? I seen one Holly, right? And there was one guy and he was absolutely jacked, shredded, right? And he like proper, like I mean, like I've never seen muscle mass on a guy like this before. And obviously the guy was feeling he wasn't feeling like a guy. He generally went through a change and grew his hair, became a woman, identified as a woman, and just started. He was an MMA fighter before, and then he went into the female category, and you could see he kept this muscle mass, but he was on all the hormone blockers and stuff that you were on, and he ran through to the division in like 3 months. I mean, I to the point where I looked at it and I was like, what is going on here? Like, I mean, he kept the bone density. Obviously, it's different for every person. You're like, I'm different from you. You're different from me. It's different, you know. But I mean, it was just. I was thinking to myself, like something. There has to be some type of a rule or a law here. Like, you know, at the end of the day, you could kill somebody. Do you know what I mean? You can literally kill somebody. But
Yeah,
but but do you know, everybody should be able to live the way they want to live. Everybody should and be who they want to be, and that's where I agree on that 100%. So you're quite happy then to just be the way you are, and that's it.
pretty much.
So what's the climate? So in your area right now, so where you're in New York, isn't it?
Rhode Island. It's not part of New York. It's a completely separate state.
Right. So it's Rhode Island's just so it's a completely separate state. So what is the climate like in your area in regards to trans people?
We
And
are we're a very blue state. We're very liberal, very democratic. We aren't Rhode Island is very accepting.
right,
Rhode Island's
right,
extremely accepting.
okay.
Obviously, every person in Rhode Island is going to differ on how they feel about it, but
Hmm.
as a state politically, Rhode Island is blue.
So growing up, did you feel any type of persecutions against yourself? Did you feel like that maybe that was there were you bullied for being different? Like as I'll just say it, you so before you became, you know, a woman, you were a gay man then.
No, I was not a gay man. I I'll say just quick that I didn't actually really start trying to come out as trans until after my dad split up with her because he told me after the fact that she pretty much wouldn't have accepted me anyway. Um, so I never really acted on it because purely my life that time was mostly fear about what was going to happen the next time I went to the house. Not to be physically abused, but just mentally and just dealing with the stress.
So did you feel like you couldn't come out because of her?
She was definitely a big factor, but also the fact that I was so young that I definitely needed to learn more about the subject before making a full commitment.
Wow. So the persecution you actually felt was from one of your homes, from, you know, and everybody's accepting outside your home, but actually the fear that you're getting is not from outside, but it's actually your dad's partner.
It was partially my dad's partner, but like I said, this was when I was younger, so the feelings were much more mild, so I kind of suppress them. It was easy
Wow.
to kind of shrug them off and just be like, no, I'm not going to think about that right now. I'll think about
Hmm.
something else. A lot of the time that I was there, I wasn't even thinking about the whole trans thing. I was just thinking, I'm just gonna get through this day, get to go back home, and just not deal with bullshit.
Just a quick question. And once again, I hope you don't mind me asking these
Go
questions.
ahead.
So before you sort of transitioned, should you say, or evolved, like that's what it is. It's like an evolution of a person. You became who you wanted to be. That's like an evolution, isn't it? It's a type of evolution. I'm not calling you a Pokemon or anything. Like I'm saying that, you know, there is like an
No,
evolution.
I get it. Yeah,
I do
mental
have a lot of
development.
mental development. There you go. You've just you're better at wording it than me. But so you weren't gay then? You didn't see yourself as a gay? Did you?
No, a
Are you into?
trans. Sorry. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, no. You go ahead.
Your gender identity and your sexual identity are two separate things.
Right.
So, a trans male to female like myself,
Mm-hmm.
back when they were male, can still be a straight man. they can be interested in just women.
Right.
So my case, I dated two women
Wow.
before two or well at the time I was in high school. Yeah, I dated two
Wow.
females before I came out as fully trans and started the transition process. I didn't have any sexual interest in guys or anything like that. It was just I was a straight man, and now I consider myself a trans lesbian.
Wow. Wow, that's like that is mind blowing. So I thought that maybe you were just a gay man and you just wanted to become a woman, and that's and then
Nope.
you know, so that's crazy. That's the part I couldn't understand, and that's the part that maybe it actually I sort of hold back from answering to asking the question sometimes because I don't want to I really don't want to offend anybody because your partner is also a trans woman. Isn't that
Yes,
right?
she
Right?
is. She's in the same boat as I am. Um, she actually came out as gay when she was a male. She came out as a gay male before she
Right.
decided to transition. And now
Right.
she
Right.
considers
Right.
herself pansexual, which means gender in a person that she likes doesn't really matter. They can be whatever they want. If she's going to have interest in them, she's going to have interest in them. She
Wow.
doesn't have a specific, I guess, gender type.
Listen, you're really teaching me loads here. I had no clue about this. I generally thought, as the Neanderthal that I am, that you were just right. Oh, you're a gay man. So I just say I'm a gay man, and I then want to take it further than that and become a woman. But it's not. You're actually saying to me you can you were straight male, and you just had these feelings that you know you were in the wrong body. So this takes us up to 17 now. So you're 17. What's that in America in school age? Like what class are you in
Senior
school in?
year in high school, 12th grade.
Se- Senior year in high school, 12. And what's school life? Are the teachers accepting? How's the students, your peers? How's the situation with your peers?
I didn't officially start transitioning until I started college when I turned 18.
Okay.
So no one in my class really knew what I was dealing with, what I was going through mentally, the therapists that I was seeing about this, or just even about just the stress back at my dad's house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there were definitely kids in school that weren't going to be accepting of it. If they found out, they would definitely be teasing, doing all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to have a gay straight alliance club at our school.
Mm-hmm.
However, I remember asking about that several times and nothing ever came up. So that would be a good way for somebody to kind of help come out
Mm-hmm.
in an accepting environment.
Mm-hmm.
I do know one other person in my school who was actually a trans female. Um, and I remember them back from when we were in about 6th grade. We didn't go to the same school, but we went to the same type of like summer camp.
Yeah.
Um, I remember them back when they were a guy. So when I had first seen them as a female, I knew I recognized them, but I couldn't remember where.
Mm-hmm.
So I had asked them later. I said, "Hey, are you such and such person?" And they're like, "Yeah, please call me whatever now." And so I was like, "All right."
So is that the thing? Like just to touch on this a little bit. So is that the thing in America? Because people need to know this. Like when people from my country or England or Europe see America, right? They either see it as super, super liberal, where everything needs to be legalized, or conservative, where Jesus owns everything, if you get what I'm saying. So what like what is the realities of this? What is it like growing up as a you know, you've got you're now 17, you're trying, you know, you're coming out, you're when you're 18, you start to sort of transition. You're saying you come from an accepting place. What places in America don't accept the trans community or
Tends to
people
be
that
the
are
South.
the South?
The South tends to be red. Red states. They're the conservative ones. You got Texas. You got like Mississippi, Alabama.
Yeah.
All those southern states.
And have you ever been to any of those places?
No, I've never gone any farther than Washington D.C.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify. I didn't necessarily come out when I was 18. I came out as gender questioning at that time and just kind of started experimenting with clothing styles and mascara and stuff like that. Just small steps. I didn't completely go to full trans female at that point.
That could be seen as a goth, though. There's a lot of gothic men out there that were like there is, but there is. I see men like I remember back in the day. I had friends that wore makeup, like they would wear black mascara, that would wear certain things. People do sort of, they do have like an experimentation side of them growing up. I used to wear the craziest stuff, but what's different with you is, and what's different with trans people in general is, once they get to this age, it doesn't go. People say, oh, it's just a phase; it'll go away. The
No.
phase doesn't go away. It's deep rooted inside them. It's who they are, and I'm sure you've heard that. That saying lots of times. It's just a phase; it'll go away. Well,
Hmm.
actually, it's not, and that's actually quite a patronizing thing to say to anybody that's going through that. So 18, you're going into colleges, and that's your first year of college. You graduate high school, and you go into college. And what's college life like for you as you are? This is the start of you sort of. I know you're not out yet transitioning, but you're sort of. How does this go? How does college life go?
College was pretty good. I first went to a place called Bryant University, which is in the northern section of my state. I was only there for a semester before dropping out, before leaving, because the classes were just too much stress on me. It was just insane. It wasn't. I wanted to go in for cybersecurity. They were offering me a decent scholarship to go, despite the
Wow.
fact that they really didn't have a cybersecurity program. They are more of a business school, so classes I was taking were related to business.
Right.
And I left because that obviously isn't the major that I wanted to go in.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was there, I had spoken to a essentially a guidance counselor about my feelings and what I was going through. They had a LGBT club at the school, so I got to know the professor who ran that. Um, Wonderful woman. I still keep in touch with her today. She is actually a lesbian woman who has a wife, so
Right.
she understands being in the LGBT umbrella. But I would go to her office whenever I felt like I needed to talk about something,
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of get something off my chest. There was also a girl in my class in some of my classes. Um, just for privacy reasons, I'll call her Jenny. Uh, I was able to speak to her about what I was going through. She didn't understand, but
Mm-hmm.
she was there willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she definitely made one of the biggest impacts on me first going through this and experimenting and trying stuff out, because she helped me to realize that people don't give a fuck, at least where we were. People, you could
Mm-hmm.
do whatever you wanted. No
Mm-hmm.
one's going to say anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a way to help me kind of calm my nerves. And I remember just before I left that semester, the fall to winter semester, we had given each other a Christmas present. I had told her that I was a fan of her perfume, her Victoria's Secret perfume, because the
Mm-hmm.
smell was just gorgeous. She gave me a sample bottle of that for Christmas.
Right.
So she was one of the first people I ever talked to about coming out, and she was one of the first people there to help.
So that's important to you. So you find now a mentor. I'm sort of trying to picture that you're now in your first year of college. You're looking for a group identity, right? You're looking for this, and you find this group, and she's a mentor. She mentors you,
She
and
wasn't a mentor. She was just a classmate who was there to listen.
yeah, a good friend, should you say
Yeah,
then? A very good friend, and
yeah,
in some degree, was she the same age? Was she older?
yeah. She was my age.
Yeah. So that's very important, and I think a lot of these places, as you say, there's blue states, there's red states. Do you think the difference between the blue states and the red states, a lot of people don't want to sort of help other people? They're having these feelings. There's trans people everywhere, there's gay people everywhere, there's all different types of people everywhere. But in the red state, should you say, there's not a lot of openness, and there's maybe this feeling like I'm not going to help this person. Even if you're trans yourself, you could be trans yourself, and you're like, there's a lot of like pushing away, should you say, where it seems like where you're from, a lot of people sort of embrace just who everybody is.
Well, it's only been within the past 10 years or so that we've seen this overall more accepting society in America. Because I mean, after President Obama legalized gay marriage, that's when everyone started being more accepting. Once it was kind of not federally, I don't know how to describe this.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy though
But like just how much
cr-
people have changed, as how much society has changed as time goes on. Even back in like 2010, you people
it's
were more
crazy.
nervous to say I'm gay.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? The fact that
Nowadays, you can be completely open with it, and everyone will just
yeah,
be like, "All right, they're gay, cool."
yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it crazy? At one point in time, it was a it was illegal to marry somebody of the same sex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that like that wasn't what was that 2010 in America?
Yeah, it was any time before 2013. 2013 is when they fully legalized gay marriage in the United States.
Like, what is your view? Like, is I'm just going to ask you this question because you're American, and I have to ask the question. But is I look at Trump, I look at Joe Biden, I look at
Mm-hmm.
is Trump as bad as he like? What is the view in America of Trump? Like, is he because he had that like that trans ban in the
In the
army, didn't he?
military, yep.
Is
And
that
then Joe
what
Biden repealed that.
like is in the blue states he's really hated, the trans community hates him, or maybe is there some of the trans community sort of gravitate towards him? What
I
is the real
can't
view in that?
say I know the statistics of any trans people that may like Trump, but it's an overall majority of the LGBTQ spectrum does not like Trump.
Right.
The blue states obviously tend to not like him because he's associated with the red states. The red
Mm-hmm.
states like him, or in some cases, then you dive into QAnon, they absolutely fucking love him and treat him like a goddamn messiah.
But what's really crazy there, QAnon aren't looking at him with Jeffrey Epstein, the pictures of him and Jeffrey Epstein.
No, they don't. They don't want to see anything that could conflict with their viewpoint.
You see,
That's the thing with being in any type of group. It's don't. Some people don't want to see things that may conflict with what they believe.
Yes, and this is where you're different. And I spoke to you, and I spoke to your partner, and you don't actually categorize yourselves as like super left, super liberal, or super right wing
Moderate.
either. Yous are like you understand that there's limitations to everything. Like you can't just like you've got people like Dr. Jordan Peterson. You have people like Dave Chappelle that are sort of talking, and they're not homophobic people, they're not transphobic people, they're not against that rule. But just is there a sort of is there a group of people in the trans community that are sort of not representing the trans community as they should? Would you agree or disagree with that?
The problem is at that point defining what you mean by the way they should. Like how should someone represent the trans community? There isn't a one way to represent a trans person. There's everyone's different. There's no one way to do that.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way.
Of course, yes, you're 100% right, and yeah, but what I mean by that is like, is it not real? Are the stories not real? What we hear over here, like we hear like, oh, Donald Trump's crazy. He's trying to he's trying to ban trans people. He's trying to push them off into the corner, which he shouldn't. And if that's really happening, that's disgusting, and he should just be never spoke about again. But then there's this other side, and they're saying, well, oh, they're trying to change boys into girls and girls into boys in the school system. Is that
That's
real?
the shit that gets to me. That type of talk is what gets to me.
Yeah.
It's not that our schools have an agenda of trying to switch people's gender identities, as the right tends to make people think.
Yeah.
Our schools may now be teaching about those gender identities because of the fact that they're so much more common nowadays. We had trans people hundreds of years ago. We had people who were gay They
Yeah.
just couldn't come out because that back then they probably would have been fucking stoned to death.
Well, actually, the Greeks were actually, it was, but also in the Greek period, it was okay to, to go with little boys, and that's disgusting. But the Greeks were quite accepting. They were too far liberal, if you should you say, like they didn't have, like, it was okay to be a feminine man. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you actually look at history, the first high heels ever wore were actually from a man. And the reason why men, or women should I say, started to wear high heel shoes was actually to look more masculine, and people don't realize that men actually brought in the high heel shoe. And but that's what I'm saying. History is a crazy thing, and if you actually look back in history, um, the Greek times, the Roman times, there was a lot of feminine men. If you look at most of the leaders, you mean today there would probably be heads of the LGBTQ. Do you know what I mean? If you actually think about it, if you look at them, now what is your view on the LGBTQ? Do you think are you a member of the LGBTQ? I know, yes, you're trans, but do you
Yeah.
consider yourself a full-fledged member? They represent you, and you represent them. Is there
I
like,
represent myself. I don't
yeah,
think anyone represents me other than me. I
right,
can I can associate with being in that group of people because I fall under the L and the T,
mm-hmm,
but I don't think any one of them can
mm-hmm.
represent me. They can only represent themselves.
Right. That's good. That's really good to hear, because what you have today is, and you have a lot of this, especially here in Ireland. There's this group thing where you're starting to see it more. They attack other groups. For instance, if I went up to my local city and I says, look, they says to me, look, we want to put a 4-year-old in hormone blockers, and I says, no, I disagree with that. That's disgusting. They would then say to me, I'm transphobic. So, what is your view? Would you think that I'm trans? Would you think that
No,
I'm?
I wouldn't. No,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't think you're transphobic. I think that when it comes to very, very young children put on hormone blockers, I definitely feel like that's more of what the parents are doing. I don't necessarily, I would have to look more into that. I
yeah.
think a young child can maybe want to try on, I don't know, like a young boy may want to try on a dress, or a young girl
Mm-hmm,
may want to play with dump trucks or some shit like
mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm,
But I tend to not, I tend to be more against putting very, very young children on hormone blockers
mm-hmm.
unless they see some kind of mental health professional.
Right. So that's where we
I think
agree
that's
on
a
things.
very,
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very, that should be a very rare case.
And what's your view? Just your opinion. Listen, you don't have to actually give your opinion if you don't want to. But what is your opinion? What do you think is the right age that should, if you're going to put a limit on it, right? Or do you think it's maybe varies? It's like a spectrum.
I was gonna say I can't put an age limit on that.
Yeah, like for yourself, like you look like a woman. You've got the hormone blockers. You look, I've seen pictures of you before. You can see it in the thumbnail. You look different. You actually look like a lady. That's in my opinion. And I like, you can definitely tell that the medication that you're on has actually made you look the way you want to look. So in my view, they do. And once again, everybody's body's different. They react different to different types of steroids or suppressions. But in my opinion, there should be an age where you have to say no. Like you're seeing a lot of people now, saying that you're transphobic. If six, like at me, 14. At 14, there has to be that. To me, I know that's quite low anyway, but at 14, you said that you can make a cognitive decision. Yes, you're going through hormones, but there has to be some type of rule there where you can't just
You can't just
you know
start your kid on blockers whenever the fuck you want.
there is crazy people out there, Holly. I
I
mean,
think
like,
there definitely needs to be some kind of mental health evaluation before anyone can make that type of decision. It's a big decision, obviously, based on all the shit that happens to a person once they start on hormones and they start transitioning.
yeah,
Um, and there are people who detransition who say, okay, maybe this wasn't right for me. Maybe I do want to go back to presenting as male or however the hell I was born. Um, but I think it's tough to make any kind of judgment call on people on age limits because no
yeah.
one knows what's going on inside their heads. Only they do.
Exactly. And the thing about it is too, who, it's you're going to get rare cases everywhere, right? You're going to get
Hmm.
cases where a child is put on hormone blockers at 6. And I always say to people, whatever you can think inside your head, it's happened and it's probably happening. But the reality of it is the whole scale of it is that, look, there is people born out there and everybody's born different. So the same should be said for trans people. Look, they're just born. I could be born. I'm thinking differently to another person. The way you think is you just feel like you were the wrong gender. And but that's another question I'm going to ask. So there's people out there that transition from male to female to female to male, and then they transition back. But what happens if you are a male that transitions to a female and you know, you get your you get it cut off? How you can't transition back again, could you? If you wanted that back,
Not
you couldn't get that back.
you really can't do that back, get that back unless you are on, I think I'm assuming you'd have to be on testosterone for the rest of your life because of the fact that you don't have the sex organs to produce that testosterone anymore. You don't have the male genitalia in order to be able to help that function properly.
How does, like, I can see how you've transitioned from male to female, right? And it's worked out really well for you, right? In my opinion, you wouldn't know, right? Honest to God, you wouldn't know. But how does a female that want, is it more rare for a female to want to become a male? How would they go about if they wanted to have a body part, say a certain sex organ? If they take testosterone, how does that do something that, where something grows or something? How
It
does that actually work?
it can affect a woman's uh, reproductive organs.
Wow.
Um, I don't know the full story because obviously I am not a
Yeah.
trans man.
Yeah.
I cannot put into words about what that exactly means.
Yeah.
I do know a few trans men.
Hmm.
My one of my friends, Theo, used to be a woman, and now he's a man. Shit. He grew a lot of facial hair. His voice deepened drastically. And
Hmm.
that's one thing about female to male hormone therapy versus male to female hormone therapy.
Hmm.
Um, FTM, I'm gonna call that's female to male. MTF is male to female. I just don't want to have to
Hmm.
say that whole thing out every time.
No, that's fine.
Testosterone affects your voice a lot. If you think about
Hmm.
how a young boy's voice can get as he grows older.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Estrogen doesn't necessarily do that for a trans woman. Trans
Right.
women need vocal training. They might need to see a vocal coach in order to start speaking at maybe a higher pitch, something a little more comfortable to help them to help with their gender dysphoria.
Right. So you're calling this gender dysphoria? Is that like that's like a I've never seen a person who's maybe transitioned thought that that's gender dysphoria. I thought that was was that labeled as gender
Gender
dysphoria?
dysphoria is the I think I don't want to offend people. I just want to get the definition correct. It is the concept designated in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual as clinically significant distress or impairment related to a strong desire to be of another gender, which
Gender
may
dysphoria.
include the desire to change primary and or secondary sex characteristics. Not all
Wow.
transgender or gender diverse people experience dysphoria, however.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I always find to say to a trans person you've got gender dysphoria is maybe that's quite a bad thing to say to them. But actually, you've read out the definition there, and it sort of makes sense. But obviously, not all of them come into that category. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So right, I'm going to go back to it. So you're in college, right? You're just in college. You find this friend. It's more of an accepting thing. Now, I'm trying to think to myself, so is there stages that you go through now? What stage are you at whenever you first, like, tell me the stages until you to where you are now. So you're male, you want to become a female, and you're now the first year of college. What steps do you take to be where you are now? Where you've got this voice, it's a lady's voice. You do sound like a lady,
Thank
and
you.
you look like a lady. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what steps do you take to actually become that?
So the first thing I did was like I said, I came out as gender questioning, so I started experimenting with makeup, maybe trying on dresses or
Mm-hmm.
just maybe tighter fitting jeans, just stuff that
Mm-hmm.
is more associated with feminine attire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember I one of the first things I started doing was I started wearing sports bras. Um, However, obviously I didn't have much of a chest then anyway, so it didn't mean much, but it was, to me, it was the fact that I knew I had it, and
Mm-hmm.
it was essentially a small step forward. It
Mm-hmm.
was my version of being like, all right, even though nobody else can see it, I know it's there. I know it. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than I know it's there, and it's a subtle step forward through my progress.
No, that's listen. I understand. I understand that. Well, actually, I don't understand it if I'm going to be honest with you, but I understand what you're saying to me. And so you have to go to a vocal coach to sort of speak more.
I don't go to a vocal coach. I never did. Uh, because I started technically before I think male growth tends to stop around the age of 25. I think that was the full 21. All right. Well, I mean, I took my hormones around 20. Yeah, I took my hormones at the age of 20, just before I met you. Okay, yeah, male growth stops at 25, voice stops at 21.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always had a higher pitched voice. I was a tenor in the chorus, so being on the blockers didn't. I mean, my voice wasn't really going to get that much deeper anyway. So
Yeah.
being on
So
the blockers just tried to help to stop that.
it was like you were. It was like you literally were. Like I looked at the picture of you before. Okay, you look like a guy, but just thinking about it was like your voice, everything is actually destined for you to be uh, a woman. It's just without sounding like I don't know, coming across as an asshole there, but it's like you're actually destined to be a woman. Your voice wasn't, you hear some men and their big deep voice. You see some trans women and their voice. Like I'll never forget this. I walked into a gay bar in Belfast. Right, me and my missus used to drink there all the time years ago, and I walked into it's a unisex toilet, walked in and I was sitting talking to this lesbian girl. And this guy walks in a full dress, like massive built man, full beard on him. And his voice, I'll never forget his voice. He's just like, is there any cubicles free? And I'm like, what the, like, but looking back, he identifies as a woman and that's how he wants to look. And it's, for me, I've never really looked down my nose on anybody, but it's quite a strange thing to see. But you know, I just find that the stigma does need to change. And over here, I've got a lot of friends that talk about, oh, they're trying to implement this trans rule into the schools. They're trying to corrupt the minds. It's actually what they're actually trying to do is just bring awareness that there is people out there that are dealing with this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if your son, your daughter, your dad or whatnot, like, what's your view on men at maybe they've had 4 or 5 kids, they're with a partner, and then they just come out as a trans woman and they just get up and leave? Like, that has happened lots and lots and lots of times before. What's your view on it? Do you think that's wrong? Do you think that they should maybe, do they need to see a psychiatrist, or is that them just being who they are?
I think it's I think it's wrong for them to just up and leave. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, I definitely believe that there should be communication between them and their partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if necessary, if they feel that it's necessary, then obviously go see a therapist or some kind of psychologist or specialist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, I think there definitely just needs to be a lot of communication about that subject.
Yeah, because it's like you hit the nail on the head. It's not that there's more of it. It's not in the water. We're not Alex Jones here. Like, the frogs are gay. The frogs are gay. You're putting stuff in the frogs. The frogs are all gay. it's not that. It's actually it's been more accepting now, and within the blue states, it's definitely more accepting, and people are coming out more now. But it is tough on the kids. It would be tough on, like, if I came out as trans. I don't know if my son might be a wee bit confused, but do you think it's right then that there's this implementation of more awareness of trans people?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question one more time?
So is there, like, they're sort of bringing it into schools more? They're talking about it more. There's more people open about it. Do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's at a good level, or do you think more awareness is needed?
I think it depends on the area. Um, Obviously, when you're in the South, I don't think it's people are aware enough. I
Right,
think people
right,
still have a lot of misconceptions in red areas. Um, but yeah, it all depends on the location.
right,
Some
right,
locations are going to have it more in the curriculum than others, and those places, I don't think there necessarily needs to be any more spread of awareness. They're covering it just fine.
right, right.
It all, like I said, it all depends.
You see, I speak to some people and they're saying, no, 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 there needs to be more. There needs to be more. There has to be more. Like, if you come ever come over here, it's very liberal here. Especially in the Republic of Ireland. I mean, you can be whoever you want to be. Now, you're going to get dickheads everywhere that say something to you, but you can be whoever you want to be, and just come out. It's actually, I would say, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, it's harder for some men to come out gay here than trans. I mean, the trans movement here in Ireland at the minute it's quite big, it's quite massive. But I know a lot of guys that are gay, and they can't come out as gay. They feel like, they're doing something bad to their family. Um, so you're experimenting with clothes and makeups and stuff, and you're not going through the voice changer. So you get into your 20s. What changes in your 20s? How do you feel now in your 20s? Is it more solid now? Is it more solidified that this is who you want to be, or
Yeah,
is there any doubts in your brain?
in my 20s, so after about those 2 years of experimentation, I fully decided, you know what, I'm gonna go for this.
Right.
I had seen a therapist as required by my doctor, but
Hmm.
when I had gone to the therapist and told her about how I was feeling and all that kind of stuff, she said she said that I wasn't like most of her other patients. Most of her other patients came in with like depression, anxiety, some with suicidal tendencies. Um, but she said you're just taking it day by day. You're just living your life.
Hmm.
So in May of 2020 is when I first started. No, sorry. May of 2019 is when I first started hormone therapy. So
Right.
from there,
And
the changes. Sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
is there an instantaneous, like, how fast does that stuff kick in?
It's
Like,
slow. It's definitely slow. It Some people it affects faster than others. Some people it takes a little while longer. Um, but all the development takes place within a 3 to 5 year span. It's about the length of a normal person's puberty.
right, so you're actually redoing puberty again, but as a
Yeah, it's a
different
second
gene.
one.
Wow, that is really, really interesting. I did not know that. I thought maybe it was like a between a. And do you go through like? Do you go, so the puberty as a male is a lot different from a female. Is there, like, how do you feel then? How is, like, what ways are you thinking? Does it change the way you think? Does it change the way you feel inside? Or does it make you more confident?
It it didn't necessarily affect my confidence or my thought process.
Yeah.
I At least I don't think it did. But if it has, no one's told me.
Hmm.
Um,
It's
it
just
definitely has made me more emotional.
right. Okay. Right. There's one.
So there's that. Because my body's not used to having this much estrogen going through its system.
So you're a male who's transitioned to a female, and now you're knowing the side of what a woman actually has to feel. Now I know, okay, there's certain other aspects to that, but you've got, without sounding bad, you've got the best of both worlds, because women always say, listen, you're a man, you don't know how a woman feels, but now you can actually, you know how a woman feels to a certain degree. What is it like? What is that change like? Is it like, are you crying? Is there an overwhelming sense of emotion? What is it like?
It's not overwhelming. The emotional, I mean, right now I'm not dealing with really any stress at all because my dad and that woman split it off, and that took most of the stress away. That took, if not all of it. So right now, there's not really much of a reason for me to be stressed, emotional, crying, or anything like that. It may kick in if I hear like a sad song or something. I may tear up more than I used to.
Right?
Um,
Just a
and
disclaimer,
sometimes
guys. Just a disclaimer. All men cry away from, like, we'll cry in a room by ourselves.
you'll be
If the
private about it.
We'll be private about it, but women are quite open. Was there a change in that? Was there a change of like men have to? It doesn't matter even if you're a gay man. Gay men do it too. Some gay men will try to hold it in too.
Every
But is there
person.
every person? But is there? But women can be a bit more open about these things, and they have that chitty chat and they'll cry and they have that with their friends and their partners. But is is there that actual change where you are a wee bit more thinking like a woman?
The problem is I don't necessarily know what you mean by thinking like a woman.
Like thinking like, well, there's me, I'm a male, right? So
Hmm.
if you, for instance, maybe you were, whenever you were a male, maybe you were a wee bit different from me too. But I'm thinking to myself, the stereotypical male, if for instance, if they changed to a woman, do you think they would be like completely changed? Their brain would see the world in a different way, because men and women do see the world in a completely different way, I do believe.
I
um
don't think that it would have. I don't think it would necessarily completely change the way they think.
yeah,
I believe there are a few studies out there done regarding brain structure, gray matter versus white matter, or something like that, and in
yeah,
brains, and there's a different ratio of that from a male
yes,
brain to a female
yes,
brain,
yeah.
and some people who transition, say from male to female, will have that female ratio of gray matter to white matter in their brain as a male. So
That's crazy.
they may already somehow in some way
Hmm.
be in that type of thought process.
Yeah. And what's your views? Because I'm asking you loads of questions here. What's your views on non-binary people, like people who aren't bind to a gender?
I mean, I don't have a problem with them. They're
Yeah.
just people.
Good.
Everybody to me is just a person. And
Yeah.
if you're not a dick, then I'm not going to be a dick to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I always found myself like, it's not, listen, I get on with it. I would have friends everywhere, like non-binary, binary, whatever. I don't care. But for instance, there is a group of people like, okay, non-binary is some days you could be a woman, some days you could be a man, or some days you're nothing. Sometimes you don't feel like you're anything, and that's okay too. But there is like, over here, there's like this, especially in England, there's this trend of people who are like, if you misgender them, you could be like, that's a hate crime. Do
Yeah,
you?
no, I take that as that's extreme. That's really extreme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a wee bit extreme, and at the same time, it's quite worrying that you could maybe misgender somebody, and that could be considered a hate crime, and you could be,
Yeah, I think that in my case, if someone were to, for whatever reason, call me he or whatever, or use my dead name, I'm just
yeah,
gonna go up to them and just be like, "Hey, it's this, not this. Please try
yeah,
to correct yourself next time."
yeah. And it's, if they don't correct it, then that's whenever
If they
they're
don't
sort.
correct it, then I might start nagging them a little more about it. And then
Yeah,
after maybe like two or three chances, depending on how much, because obviously everyone's going to fuck up from time to time. No one's perfect. No one's going to get it right
hmm,
100% of the time, especially when they've known
hmm,
me as John for 20 years.
yeah, yeah,
It seems like there's somehow a way that you can tell when someone is genuinely trying to adjust versus people who just don't give a shit.
yeah. How's the effect on your family? How was your? Have you any siblings?
I don't have any siblings. I did have step siblings, obviously, when my dad was married to her, but
Yeah.
I never came out as trans at any point during that time period, so that
Hmm.
didn't matter at all.
And do you live with your partner, or do you still live with your, or do you
I
live
live
with
with
them?
my partner, my
Yeah,
fiance, and
yeah.
we currently live in my mother's house.
Okay. And how was your mum? How does it, like your family as a whole? Did some family members stop speaking to you, or did they all embrace it as, oh, this is who Holly
No,
is now?
none of my family members had a problem speaking with me. They all still are in contact with me.
That's
Um,
great to hear. That's great to hear.
Obviously, some of them just took some more time to adjust. There were some people back when I was working at my one of my first jobs. We had a Jehovah's Witness living working in the office. Yeah, and once I started diving into that rabbit hole, that's another cult we can cover at a later date. Um,
Hmm.
I was told that uh, I found out from one of my other coworkers who I was friends with from high school. We all worked with this person because my boss was actually my ex girlfriend's mother.
That's a bit
So it,
that's a bit,
I know.
yeah,
So I was dating her daughter, and then I eventually got the job. No, sorry. I got the job with her before I started dating her daughter.
yeah.
But me and her daughter ended on good terms, so there wasn't any awkwardness at work or anything like that. We kept work strictly professional.
And you were male at that stage.
Hmm.
That
I was
must have
male at
been,
that stage. I
yeah.
was at that job till I was about 20. So during that time, I was going through my questioning phase, my questioning period, where I was experimenting and all that. And once I started realizing what I wanted to do and that I wanted to transition, I told my boss, because there was like five of us in this tiny office.
Yeah.
I told my boss, I asked her, could she start calling me Holly? And she said, yeah, no problem. I'll let the people around the office know, and we'll change it on your timesheet. So a lot of the people in the office were accepting, but I found out from my coworker, one of my good friends, that the person, we'll call her Marianne, the Jehovah's Witness,
Hmm.
we'll call her Marianne, um,
Hmm.
that wouldn't she wouldn't call me Holly. She either tried to avoid talking to me at work. Not that I ever really had to ask her anything. We were all kind of just doing our own shit.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was told by my friend that because of her being a Jehovah's Witness, devout Jehovah's Witness, that she would never call me Holly or go by feminine pronouns.
Well, do you know what? I'll give her this. She worked in that place, did she?
Yes.
Well, it's a good job that she was able to work as a Jehovah's Witness, because we know how crazy that cult is. You
Yeah.
know, hey, listen, you can't be what you want to be, but here we'll just let this child die by not giving him a
By now giving him blood.
transfusion.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So, but
Mm-hmm.
listen, there is good Jehovah's Witnesses, because there's a sect of Jehovah's Witnesses here in Ireland, and they're not as extreme, and they don't really go by that. We're not going to give blood transfusions, because
That's
they had.
surprising. I'd be interested to learn more about that.
Oh, yeah, listen, I wind them up. There was one came to my door one time, and there was this older lady, and there was this young lady. She was about the same age as myself, and she came up to me, and the young lady she looked terrible. She looked like she hadn't ate in about a month, and she was just grey, and she looked like she was going to die. And this older lady was quite plump, and she looked like she'd never missed a meal, and she looked like she was eating this girl's food. And I went and I goes to the younger lady, I says, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Don't speak to her." And I
Oh
went,
God.
"Okay." And I says, "What are you?" And she goes, "Jehovah's Witnesses." I goes, "Oh." And I had my son with me. And I says, "Are you here to sort of try to convert me?" And she goes, "No, we're here to speak to talk about the word of Jehovah." And I says, "Are you the cult that let children die if they need a blood transfusion or medical assistance in some way?" I'm like, well, no, it's not just like that. It's not just like that. I says, "Well, hold on." I says, "Do you let children die if they need a blood transfusion?" "Yes," she said. And I says, "Get the fuck away from my door right now." And I says, "Tell you another thing." I looked at the lady, the younger lady, and I says, "See, you know this is bullshit." And she knew it was bullshit, Holly. I swear, I'm not joking. She knew it was bullshit. And I says, "You need to get the fuck out of here right now." I goes, "Because they're going to kill you." I goes, "I can see it in your face. It doesn't. I would rather be homeless than be in with that shithole cult." And the older lady walked away, and she was writing something down in the book. And then they never came back to my house again.
That's awesome. That
They
is
never came.
awesome.
They just never came back. And the young lady, listen, I don't know if she got out. I hope she did get. I wish her well, but she never spoke a word, and she knew what she was in was bullshit.
Hmm.
That's the
That
truth. Like,
sounds like someone who is a what they call PMO, physically in, mentally out.
well, maybe she was homeless. Maybe she needed shit. Maybe a lot of people go through rough times. Listen, if I was homeless and a Jehovah's Witness offered me a bed, I would probably take the bed because it's better than sleeping in the street. But after a year of being brainwashed and like, if you actually listen to the story Jehovah, like what some guy found something like, listen, come on, it's 2021, guys. We need to move away from this crap. Like, but sticking to the point, we'll come back sometime. We'll actually talk about cults because I know you're into that, Holly. We did do a podcast about Scientology, and that will be premiering. I think it's the 21st of December. So tune in for that one, guys. Holly breaks down Scientology. She's actually a bit of a Scientology historian, should you say? You've got equipment and certain bits and pieces to do with Scientology, and you broke it down quite well. That was like my second podcast I done. I hope I actually broke it. I presented it well, but I learned a lot with that, and that was the basics of Scientology, and that comes out in the 21st of September. And I hope you come back and we can actually get into little subcategories to do with Scientology, and we can break other things down, like the celebrities in Scientology, and another one. Devil worshipping in Scientology. Apparently, this is a new one now. They're all devil worshippers. So if we'll come back and do a few of those, that would be absolutely amazing. But is there anything else we need to know about the trans community? What else? Have I covered everything there? Have I,
I mean, there's
what?
there's probably stuff that you missed, but off
Yeah,
the top of my head, I can't think of anything. If you do
what?
happen to come up with anything, then let me know.
Yeah, like I mean, I wanted to give the sort of the broad spectrum of your life, like from when you first started to have those thoughts right up through, high school to college and things like that. Do you think we've covered everything there? Do you think, looking back,
I
people
think
would
we covered up to college and a little past college well, but I don't think we really completely covered the period of actually being on hormones up to now.
right? So can we cover that now then? Because I really want to, I want to actually learn the whole process, the whole
All right,
process. Yeah.
it's gonna get a little PG-13 rated, but
No, that's okay. Listen, that's YouTube. I can put an age limit in this if need be.
you might have to, depending, because it's
No,
gonna
it's okay. You
depending on what
talk
we talk
away.
about. But so like I said, I started hormones back in May of 2019. The process is for me is slow, but it's gradual.
Mm-hmm.
It's you can't notice the progress within a day, within a week, or within a month, or even within 6 months. I remember the
Mm-hmm.
first I was working at I was working an IT desk job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was when I had just started hormones. I was doing it for the summer or something, or for no final semester of college. I was doing an internship. Um, and I remember I was wearing sports bras underneath my button down shirt. I didn't, again, I had just started hormones. I was pretty much flat as a board. It was still me just kind of keeping that feminine aspect to myself, even while I had to dress as a male because my coworkers didn't know. So I was just kind of just like, all right, it's going to be over in a few months. I'll worry about it after. I just kept going on with my job, just going as a male, because the people that I would talk to or go to their desks on a daily basis, they just knew me as the IT guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel the need to really come out with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was when I started working at a not technical consultant. I was supposed to do web app testing, quality testing. So I was working at this place in Providence, um, and then I had been on the hormones anywhere from I had started the job in September, so around 5 6 months, and I ended the job in April of 2020. So I had been on hormones for almost a year. And by then, it was starting to get to the point where even wearing a sports bra under a button-down shirt or a shirt with a tie or whatnot, if you knew what to look for, you could tell something was different.
Right.
There were
Okay.
points where you just can't hide it anymore.
Right.
So I had told my boss, I told my coworker, he told my coworkers, and they were all perfectly fine with it.
So something's growing there. Is there something
Chest fat.
happening? Is that actually that's the thing? So that will actually produce if you're on the
Yeah.
right. Wow, that's all real.
That's real. Plus a small
Wow,
push-up bra, but still, it's
wow,
all real.
well, that's crazy. That's
Fat
crazy.
on hormones, fat will redistribute from certain areas to other areas. So
Hmm.
it'll go, maybe it'll be a little less fat in the stomach, a little more in the thighs or the butt or the chest, stuff like that. Maybe a little more roundness in the face, depending. Um, so yeah, that's one thing that's gonna change.
That is
Uh,
crazy.
Body hair, facial hair is gonna thin. It's not going to be as obvious.
Yeah,
Um, but either just as I started or just before I started hormones, I had gone through laser hair removal. So I had gotten rid of this, and stuff under here. It still grows back, but it's at a much slower rate than it used to be.
yeah. Well, women
So,
get that anyway, don't the women do have
yeah, but
women? Yeah,
it's the fact that had I not gone on the laser,
yeah.
that it would be more of a pain in the ass.
You didn't want a 5 o'clock shadow, basically.
No, I
Yeah, yeah,
didn't.
yeah, yeah. And that's listen. You don't listen. As I can see now, you definitely don't you, like. It's really what humans can do today to help people is just crazy. Like
Yeah.
if me and you got a time machine and went back 200 years and we said, well, actually, Holly used to be a guy. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they'd be
It's,
confused as shit.
they would be so confused. I would love to. Listen, that would be great. If that was possible, that would be amazing to see the people's reactions. Like, this is some witch doctor stuff. Burn them at the stake.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? They would be burning us at the stake. Where I'd be like, get my head chopped off. But the, so where are we up to now? Then we're
All
this
right, so we're
you're in
about a
work.
year in, I
Yeah.
think. And this is when the chest development is still going at a relatively slow pace. I mean, everything
Hmm.
is. It's all a gradual process. It's not just at 6 months this is all going to be gone. It's
Hmm.
just it's going to happen throughout the entirety of the hormone period.
Hmm.
So it was just that stuff was more prominent. My chest started sticking out more. I started wearing more feminine attire on a more permanent basis.
Hmm.
Um, Skin softens at least a bit.
Wow.
So that helps. Uh, Again, like I said, body hair thins, so it's not, you don't have to shave as much, or even if you do shave, it's not as easy to see.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of what else.
You do have feminine hands, like that's like I'm just looking
Because
at
I
your
don't,
hand. Like,
I mean, I never had a heavy manual labor job. A lot of my shit's been desk jobs.
yeah, like imagine if you worked on a building site, like you were working as like a builder and you were lifting blocks all day
Oh
and
yeah, no,
you're putting the wood up into the roof, the timber up into the roof, and like that, like you're gonna have thick, heavy hands, like you know what I mean. But
I'd look totally different.
yeah, yeah. So maybe it's a good thing your life choices actually maybe helped you sort of with the transition.
Yep. No, I definitely think they did.
Yeah, like you weren't bench pressing, you weren't in the gym bench pressing 150 kilograms. Like, do you
Mm-mm.
know what I mean? Yeah, yeah,
I was on the computer most of the time.
yeah. Which probably helped. That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? So then, where are we up to now? Then,
I mean, we're I want to say we're pretty much up to this point. I mean,
so we're up to this point right now, and how does Holly Provencals feel right now? Is she happy? Is she sad? Uh, how do you feel? Are you happy with everything that's went on to this point in your life?
I'm definitely more confident in how I look. Um, Waist has started thinning out, so I have a bit more curves.
Mm-hmm.
I used to weigh back in that picture you see of me hanging on
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't shave. Whatever. Um, but back on the pictures of me hanging on the zero G yoga stuff that I was trying out.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say I was about 170 pounds. I had been 190 when my dad left her, when they split
Okay.
up. So from that, I've gone from that to about 145. So there's
Wow.
been a definite change when it comes to fat loss and how that affects how this
So there
all
you,
looks.
so there you go, people. If you want to lose weight, just transition. There you go.
I mean, I started losing weight before I transitioned. I started losing weight pretty much as soon as she was out of the picture. It was the stress. I was
right.
I
So
was stress eating. I
yeah,
was just nervous all the time.
yeah, you're comfort eating, or you're sort of comfort eating, and you can't be yourself, and you're stressed out because you can't be yourself, and then all of a sudden you can be yourself, and the pounds just fall off.
Now that
That's
yeah,
yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Like,
and besides, my dad's current girlfriend got him into obstacle course races. So they started going to this gym, and then they had gotten me into it. So I started going to this gym,
mm-hmm,
and I stopped doing that after I started my current job because of the schedule.
mm-hmm.
But I lost probably about 20 or so pounds being at that gym.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
And the
before
thing,
that was country line dancing.
there you go. That's it. That's good
So
cardio. That's
yeah,
really good. Country that was, you hit me with a curveball there. Country line dancing. So
yeah.
you just went from blue to red really really fast there. So country line dancing, is that a thing? Is that a big thing in your area?
No. You don't tend to the place that I used to go to, you don't most people don't know it's there. It's kind of like an out of the way place in like a remote area of the state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what? I'm gonna shout it out anyway, just in case for whatever reason you have any Rhode Island
Yeah.
viewers.
Yeah.
Mishnock Barn in West Greenwich.
There we
It's
go, guys.
it's phenomenal. The people there, um, a lot of the friends I had, some of the friends I had in college actually were the ones who told me about the barn. So I used to go with them, and they were
Mm-hmm.
completely accepting of everything. So they made it a little easier to kind of go into this place full of older people. It used to be like I think it used to be like what was it? Mom, what was it? A rock and roll place? I don't know. But they used to have like bands and stuff there in like the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the clientele there were people maybe in their 40s, 50s, 60s, but a lot of the younger generation had started showing up once they heard about the place.
Mm-hmm.
There was one person, Dennis. He had to have been one of the oldest there. I think he was like 84.
Right.
Fit as a fucking fiddle. He
Right.
he
Right.
he I think he owns like I want to say he owns like 7 properties. He used to play tennis. He's
How does the older generation, like, are the older generation in your area, are they all accepting to
pretty
the
much
pranks?
they're even though it was in a what you would associate as a red area, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the people there were actually very accepting.
That's great,
No
isn't
one
it?
ever said anything because if they did, if anyone came up to me and said something at that barn,
Mm-hmm.
not only did I have a small group of friends at my table, pretty much the
Mm-hmm.
entire barn was willing to back me up.
There's going to be a barn fight.
Pretty much, or at the very least, someone gets kicked out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and that's the point you're up to now. Then, so you're happy in yourself. You're happy about the future. You're feeling happy.
I'm
That
I'm happier than I've ever been.
that is really really good to hear. And listen, guys, Holly's partner, Carmen, will be coming on and be telling her story. And I can't wait to hear her story because, without actually giving anything away, would Carmen's story be a wee bit different to yours?
Quite different.
Okay. So it's a
So
wee
there's
bit,
this,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a wee bit different, guys. But listen, this is what it is. I want to give a platform to everybody. I want to, when I'm building this channel, I want it doesn't matter, true crime, life stories, whatever. This is what this channel is about. And I want to learn, and I've learned a lot tonight. Do you think is that most of that covered then, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah, and listen, that's an hour and 23 minutes that we've done there, coming up to an hour and a half, and that's a good amount of time to be talking about this. But Carmen is coming on to talk about her story. Holly will be joining me again to talk about other subjects. We want to talk about cults. There's one coming out about Scientology. I'll leave all this in the description of this live video, and you can be able to find that tomorrow then, because sometimes it takes a wee while for the videos on YouTube to process. But Holly, thank you very, very much for joining me tonight. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Not that I can think of. I can just say I really enjoy talking with you on this podcast, and I can't wait to do more episodes later in the future.
Oh no, listen, there'll definitely be more episodes because I enjoy your company too. But guys, remember, share this video and like, and if you can, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and ring the bell, because that will then you'll be notified for future videos. Guys, thank you very much.
One
Sorry, go ahead.
If I shoot you a thing on Messenger, would you be able to throw my channel in the description?
Of course I will. I was going to do that anyway. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Didn't know. All right.
Right. Peace, guys. Peace out.
Peace.